I am Lena Morales, age 28, and the day this began, I was sitting on a cracked bus bench outside. My aunt house stomach tight phone dead pride bruised, acting broke on purpose while my family watched from behind curtains, because 2 weeks earlier my job vanished after a quiet betrayal at work. A supervisor took credit for my project, blamed me for a budget mess, and I walked out with a box and a smile that hid panic. Then my savings froze after a bank error tied to a relative who used my name for a short loan. Family manipulation dressed as help, and I needed to see who would show up when I looked useless. I wore old sneakers, skipped makeup, and let hunger show, because hunger reveals truth fast. My personality is blunt, observant, stubborn, and tired of being managed. I usually solve problems, but that morning I chose to watch. My aunts passed by with forced cheer, cousins scrolled phones and avoided eye contact, whispers floated about responsibility and choices, and the cousin I could not stand, Marco Reyes, the one who mocked my career and borrowed without returning, noticed me shaking. The conflict hit early when my aunt asked why I was there and suggested I leave. A polite shove, while my chest burned with anger and fear. I thought about the rent due, the job interviews cancelled, the account frozen, the quiet knife of betrayal at work, and the louder knife of family judgment. I felt small and sharp at the same time. Then Marco sat next to me. No jokes, no lecture, just a paper bag pushed toward my hands. Warm smell of rice and chicken, he said, eat, nothing else. And that moment cracked my plan. Because the one person I expected to enjoy my fall was offering food without cameras or conditions, my mind raced with stakes. Accept and learn who he is now, or refuse and keep control. Moral dilemma, heavy pride versus survival. A quick note for you watching. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this. The tension stayed tight as a drum. I watched my family watch us, saw calculations, saw relief, saw disappointment. I noticed details. His hands were steady, his eyes avoided mine. The bag was from a place he knew I loved, which meant he remembered. My age felt louder than ever, 28 and tired of games. I took a bite, heat spread, shame followed, and then a quiet resolve, because help reveals power dynamics. And I needed to know why he helped when others turned away. The hook deepened as he whispered that he knew about the loan and the job, that he had proof, that he waited for the right moment. My heart kicked, the bench felt colder, the food heavier, and I realized this test was no longer about hunger. It was about truth, leverage, and what he would ask next. So tell me, what happens when the cousin you despise becomes the only ally standing between you and ruin? The first turning point arrived quietly, which made it worse, because quiet means planning. I learned that the night Marco texted me a photo of a document, my name typed clean, my signature scanned, the loan amendment approved, and a note beneath it saying, "This could disappear. Or it could grow teeth." My stomach twisted harder than hunger ever did. Betrayal shifted shape, not a surprise, but a reveal. His motive was not kindness, it was timing, and my internal conflict flared. Part of me wanted to expose everything, call the bank, scorch the lie. Another part counted the cost. Family backlash, industry whispers, the risk to interviews already fragile. Doubt pressed in. Was I strong enough to burn bridges while standing on thin ground? External pressure stacked fast. My aunt called with concern that felt like surveillance. A former coworker messaged about a reference if I stayed quiet about the project mess. A friend warned me that truth without leverage becomes noise. I felt cornered by options that all hurt. Marco asked to meet. Public place. His choice. Subtle control. When he arrived, he spoke softly, said he helped because he hated watching me get used. Then admitted he used the loan to protect himself from worse people. A confession wrapped in justification. He offered a trade. His words careful. He would clean the loan and back my work claim if I supported him at a family vote about property. A future inheritance pivot. My heart raced. The moral dilemma sharpened. Do I ally with someone I distrust to reclaim my life? Or stand alone and risk losing everything? Anxiety threaded every thought. I noticed the room, eyes flicking, phones lifted, pressure from circumstance tightened. Rent clock ticking, interviews pending, the bank deadline looming. Emotions surged, anger at being cornered, shame at needing help, fear of becoming what I despised. I challenged him, asked why now. He said because hunger makes honesty efficient. That line cut deep. The stakes rose when he added that others already knew pieces of the story. Secrets leaking like gas. One spark away, I felt undermined by my own past silence, by a workplace that taught theft politely, by a family that measured worth in convenience. Suspense sat heavy as I weighed the offer. My chest buzzed, hands steady, voice calm. A mask learned early. I asked for time. He smiled without warmth, said time was expensive. Rising tension tightened the air. Because refusing meant war, accepting meant debt, and either path would change who I was allowed to be. I walked away with my phone buzzing, my mind loud, knowing the first move would define the rest. And I had to choose before the quiet turned into something that could not be undone. Escalation did not announce itself. It arrived through consequences that stacked fast. Because I chose delay, not refusal, and that gap became a weapon others used. The bank sent a notice with sharper language. My interview feedback cooled overnight. And a family group chat lit up with concern that felt coordinated, manipulation wrapped in care. I felt the pressure squeeze my ribs as Marco followed through on half promises. He nudged the loan status into review but leaked a rumor that I was unstable. Ethical dilemmas multiplied. Accept a dirty assist to survive. Or stay clean and sink. Finances tightened. Rent notices pinged. Groceries became math. Reputation thinned as whispers grew. I noticed who leaned away at gatherings, who asked leading questions, who recorded conversations under the guise of memory. Emotional tension stayed high. Uncertainty became my shadow. Every step felt watched. Marco escalated with polite demands. Attend a meeting, nod at a vote. Stand beside him for optics. He framed it as family unity, but I saw leverage. Relationships strained. My mother asked me to be flexible. A friend stopped returning calls. A former coworker hinted that silence could restore my standing. All roads required a compromise. The pace quickened as deadlines converged. The bank review date, the property vote, the reference window. My breath shortened, sleep fractured. I chose a risky countermove. I documented everything, messages, dates, patterns, while playing agreeable, a tightrope act. Manipulation met with preparation. The risk climbed when Marco sensed resistance. His kindness cooled, his eyes calculated. He warned me that truth without allies becomes a spectacle. Finances took another hit as a hold appeared on my account. Reputation trembled when a blog post surfaced questioning my professionalism. Intensely dramatic days, blurred pressure throbbed behind my eyes. I felt uncertain yet resolved, because backing down now would erase me. The stakes peaked at a family dinner turned forum. Voices rose, sides formed. Marco spoke smoothly, positioning me as fragile but supported. A velvet cage. I felt the room tilt. Then a message buzzed. The bank review moved up. Tonight. Suspense tightened the air. I stood, heart hammering, knowing my next words could fracture the family or free me. And as every face turned, I realized escalation had one rule left. Act now or be acted upon. and the night held its breath, waiting for which I would choose. The twist landed when the room went quiet, a pause thick enough to hear my pulse, and I realized the secret was not just Marco's leverage. It was the family script itself, because the bank call connected on speaker and a calm voice confirmed that the loan amendment was approved by an internal referral tied to my aunt account, not Marcos. Shock hit first, sharp and clean. Disbelief followed. Messy and loud. My aunt froze. My mother stared at the table, and Marco exhaled like a runner at the finish. The truth reframed everything. His food was not bait, it was an apology he could not say. His timing was defense, not attack. Disappointment burned because betrayal wore familiar faces. Resolve hardened as patterns snapped into place. The pause stretched, then the reveal deepened. The bank added that the same referral flagged my work project dispute. A connection I never imagined, family influence bleeding into my career through favors traded quietly. My emotions ricocheted, anger at the web, grief for the trust I handed over, relief that I was not crazy. Marco spoke then, voice steady, said he tried to stop it. Said he warned them I would find out. Said the food was a line he refused to cross again. Believable because it matched the facts. Suspense stayed unresolved, as my aunt claimed protection. My mother claimed fear. Excuses collided. I felt the weight of choice return, heavier now, expose the system, and scorch earth. Or extract myself cleanly, and let the truth rot in daylight. The pacing slowed for a breath, then tightened as messages poured in. The blog post corrected itself. An editor apologized, a reference pinged with interest, consequences already shifting. Yet the cost loomed. Family fracture, reputation repair, alliances redrawn. My shock settled into clarity, disbelief into focus, disappointment into calm resolve. I thanked Marco, not for the leverage, but for the line he held. And I faced the room with facts aligned. Suspense held because I did not decide aloud. I asked for time again, this time on my terms. The call ended. Silence returned, eyes searched my face, and I understood the twist fully. The villain was not one person. It was the habit of quiet control. And whether I broke it now or later would define the ending. The night waited, unfinished, charged, ready for what I would reveal next. The climax came with a breath I chose to take, then a decision I chose to own. I stood and said I would not trade silence for comfort. Not now, not ever, and the room reacted in waves. Shock first, then resistance. Then relief from corners I did not expect. I told the bank representative I would submit evidence, all of it, messages, timelines, referrals, and I accepted the risk aloud. Finances might dip before they recover, relationships might crack before they heal, but my moral standing would stay intact. The choice cut clean. Marco nodded once, not approval, understanding. Positive consequences began small. The bank placed a temporary shield on my account. An investigator scheduled a review. My reference called back with cautious optimism. Negative consequences followed just as real. My aunt left the room. My mother cried quietly. Family chats went silent. I felt the cost in my chest. Heavy but honest. Pacing slowed as outcomes unfolded. Interviews resumed with conditions. Rent relief arrived through a short extension. Reputation steadied as facts replaced rumor. Emotionally charged moments stacked. Apologies half-formed. Anger redirected. Resolve tested. I stayed immersive in the work of repair, emails precise, calls calm, documentation thorough. I declined Marco's offer to stand with him publicly. A colleague admitted fear kept them quiet, finances stabilized enough to breathe, not enough to relax. Realistic, and earned. The moral standing felt lighter than money ever did. Consequences lingered. Holidays would be awkward. Trust would rebuild slowly, or not at all, but the path was clear. I chose exposure with care, not vengeance, and I accepted that clarity costs. The tone settled into determined calm. The night ended without applause, just nods and exits. And as I walked away, I felt the story pivot, not finished, but aligned, because the decision was mine, and whatever followed would meet me standing. Not hungry, not pretending, but ready for the next turn. I wanted them to feel the weight and the release, the story complete yet teaching, and I posed the question aloud to them. What would you have done in my place? Because the answer reveals courage, and insight, and boundaries drawn with care.